I wishlisted this game a long time ago, and on reading the Steam page, I found out it's a solo project made at the time by a 17-year-old named Zihan Wang. It was released in March 2020 and is his first and only game released to Steam, so I knew already to manage my expectations for the game appropriately. It's a combat-centered game made in Unity engine, with 12 levels in total, split into 3 sections. The game starts you off with a photosensitive epilepsy warning and then lets you into the menu. There are 4 options: to play, for the tutorial, for the settings, and to exit. As per the title, the game is computer themed, with the settings menu being in 1s and 0s for the toggles, and there being game graphics and a change to the default settings. There's a couple of mouse sensitivity sliders and toggles to switch full screen, a low completeness notification, a hide crosshair sign before transmission, and a show target information for destructible object toggle. For the graphics, there's an anti-aliasing, real-time reflection, camera shake, and resolution settings. There is potential for this game to make some people a bit nauseous, from the lights and also from the camera shaking, which does get quite frequent, especially during the last level. I then did the tutorial to make more sense of this stuff. It told me that the blue bar in the top left was my file completeness, effectively my health bar. There are 3 icons in the bottom right for your abilities, and there's an orange bar for your RAM/ammo. In the tutorial it's unlimited, but normally this is a limited bar that can run out. I'll say one thing, this game does do a good job of explaining itself, but it does have an issue where the text is either not very well sized to the screen, leading to bits being cut off, text is overlaid on top of each other, or the font colour doesn't match that well to the background, so I had to go and find a wall to press my face into to be able to read what was going on. Great to explain, but not too great if you can't actually read some of it though. The controls are easy. It's left mouse to shoot, right mouse for a blast bullet which has a 7-second reload time, mouse 3 gives you a shield to stop damage, and Q is your transmission, effectively a teleport. The teleport has to load first, you have to wait for the yellow bar to fill before you can jump. This has a 15-second cooldown. You have to fight viruses, little people with fangs, to help complete the levels. The controls aren't toggleable, however, so if you don't have a mouse 3, then you won't be able to use the shield. There's no background sound to this game, by the way, no music or sound effects at all. I guess this means you can listen to your own music whilst you play, but you don't get any feedback from the game audibly. It didn't bother me at all, but for some it might. With the basics got, I pressed play. You enter a kind of lobby with 3 doors. The game directs you left, but I took a look at all of them. The 3 levels are hard disk, RAM, and CPU. Hard disk holds levels 1 to 3, RAM holds levels 4 to 11, and CPU is the final level. And all the levels are locked until you play the one before, so I started in hard disk. Hard disk mode is a wave survival mode, where your teleport is disabled and you have infinite ammo. You only use your blast and shield to live through the enemy waves. There are 2 types of enemy, one with projectiles and one melee with swords, which have faster movement to make up for their lack of range. The game mode itself is explained by the portal you go to, so there's no confusion. Level 1 wasn't too hard, just spammed shoot and kept far enough away that the ads wouldn't shoot back, since they don't actually start attacking you until they get in a certain range. There's also a damaging barrier that spins around the disc that the arena is, that you have to shield against whenever it comes around to avoid damage. Level 1 was 5 waves, level 2 was 10, and level 3 was 15. It gets harder and harder, mainly because the enemies spawn right next to you and no amount of strafing that worked in the first couple of levels can get you away from them fast enough for your liking. Every level you complete gives you a scorecard and then takes you back to the main menu for some reason, so you have to press play again and then go back into the lobby and back to the gate again. RAM is a very different mode and there are 2 stages within it. Levels 4 to 7 involve destroying 3 enemy spawners, and then deleting all of the viruses that remain to win. The spawners have shields, so you can't shoot them from a distance, you have to get right up to them and inside the shield to be able to delete them. The area is just a series of bridges, so there's plenty of fall risk, and to make it better, chunks of the bridge go missing at regular intervals, and you will fall if you step on them, but the viruses won't. The game gives you your transmission ability in this one, so you can teleport over gaps, and it gives you multiple lives, so you do get a few attempts, but it handicaps you by making the ammo limited. The difficulty increases in variation, either by bridge chunks falling at shorter intervals, longer chunks of bridge disappearing when they do, or by faster spawns of enemies. Honestly, these levels are hard. There's nowhere for you to run when you're at a spawner and trying to fight that and the enemies. With ammo being limited, you sometimes fight your way to a module and then go to attack it, only to find that you can't because you have no ammo left, and you can't destroy it, meaning not only do the enemies catch up to you and attack you when you can't fight back, but you're also stood right under a spawner dropping even more enemies in your face. You have to pick your route carefully. You know when the bridges will drop, so you have to make the choice to get over the portion that will fall, or stop and wait and hold your ground against enemies that catch up to you. Levels 8 to 11 are an alternate version of the first chunk. You have to delete spawners still, but there are 8 this time instead of 3. You can only access 4 at a time, and once you delete those 4, the arena opens up wider and you have to get rid of the other 4. However, this time, once you do that, you get hit with a mini-boss. You get even more lives this time, so you can respawn more, and the game gives you a couple more boosts. Your blast bullet power gains the ability to stun enemies for a couple of seconds, stopping them moving or attacking. You also get a second stage to your teleport, which takes longer to charge and builds an orange bar. You can still do the normal teleport, but you can choose to do the stage 2 teleport by waiting longer. The arena isn't a grid form like it was at the start, so there's more access to spawners, but also more access for the enemies to get to you. These levels are also incredibly hard, since there are more bridges to fall, more places to get stuck, and more places for enemies to come at you from, plus more spawners for them to originate from. With projectiles you can get shot over gaps, and the diagonal bridges mean you're more likely to get shot over gaps than on the grid, because they're within the range when they start to fire. The frequency of bridge drops goes up, meaning not only are there more enemies and more weight on the decision to which path you take, but there's also more chance you'll get stalled by a gap and the enemies just keep coming on at you, because they aren't limited by the falling bridges. There were a few issues I picked up in these levels. Firstly, the stage 2 teleport is... well, I don't actually know what the benefit of it is. It doesn't cover more distance because your target marker doesn't move. It doesn't really happen faster because the jump is instantaneous anyway, and you have to wait even longer to be able to use it. Either way, I did not use it most of the time for these reasons, so thanks for the help, but that one didn't really help that much. If you fall off a disappearing piece of bridge right next to solid ground, you can actually get a bit of grip on the edge. Unfortunately, this means that when the floor reappears, you stay stuck in the ground. The game will tell you how long it takes until the next bridge drops, but it doesn't actually highlight the portions that will drop until a few seconds before they do, usually a few seconds after the timer resets. This also means that a piece of dropping bridge can be highlighted under you, and in some cases the portions are so long that you physically can't cross them before they drop. Some of them need you to be able to teleport across it to make it to the other side, but if you've just used your teleport to jump a gap to get away from a ton of enemies that are coming after you, then it won't have regenerated in time and you're dead. With your health bar you can weather enemy damage for a certain amount of time, but a fall is death no matter how much health you have, so falling is the worst possible thing you can do. The second set of spawners are behind a force field at the start of the level, but it's clear, and I found it quite hard to get perspective of where I had to go, because it was easy to mistake the outer spawners for the spawners you can actually get to, so you can try your best to get to them, but you'll just end up stuck and having wasted time. Finally, these levels can't actually decide if you're allowed to jump or not. If I pressed space, 9 times out of 10, nothing would happen. But for some reason, every once in a while, it would let me do it. It was almost like it was on a cooldown, but I couldn't see the cooldown for it, and it never told me if I was or wasn't allowed to jump. So sometimes I ran down a bridge expecting to be able to jump just before it disappeared and fall to my death, and sometimes I would try it and it would work. Now, to the mini-boss. It's a glowing orb in the middle that has a bunch of powers. Remember that epilepsy warning? Well, this is stage 1 of its requirement. Since you have the outermost spawns to kill before it appears, you'll normally be miles away from it and out of range to hit it. So you have to get closer. But the enemy's abilities are not limited by range. It has the power to drop data bombs on you which slow and damage you, shown by targets. It spawns viruses that come after you, so you have to fight the ads and the boss. It has shaped attacks that fall from the ceiling, and if you get hit it stuns you, plus it shakes the camera hard. And it has a laser ball beneath it that disco balls a damaging laser around the arena, all the way to the edges, which is too high for you to jump over, so your only way to avoid damage is to use your shield. There is absolutely no way to fight this without taking damage, and amongst all that you have to remember you're playing on a series of bridges, and between dodging all of the attacks, paying attention to the viruses and remembering to point and fire at the boss, it's hard to also keep track of whether you're heading for the abyss. This game gives you no breaks. Through some painstaking attempts and a few breaks, I finally beat these levels, and it was on to the final level, the boss level. This also had a page that told me this boss had 4 stages. Stage 1, you fight an advanced virus boss. Stage 2, you fight the virus boss, but this phase ends when you get him down to 75% health. Stage 3, you fight 4 virus boss images at the same time, and Stage 4, you finally fight the virus boss. There are 4 buff sphere posts in the arena that you can pick up, and these will either give you an accelerate, infinite bullet, or recovering buff. All are fairly self-explanatory. The enemy, however, can debuff you, just like the Stage 8 to 11 mini-boss. That and these have the ability to interrupt you, that's the stun, decelerate you and slow you down, but this time the new bosses can reverse you as well, i.e. inverting your controls. You have all the abilities that you had in the 8 to 11 levels, including the enemy stun and Stage 2 teleport, and you have multiple lives to take you through all 4 boss stages, though you have less than you did in the 8 to 11 levels. I'm gonna be frank, and you're gonna have to excuse my French. Children, cover your ears. But this level is the most fucking infuriating thing I have played in a long time. You essentially fight a giant virus which has a sword and staff, i.e. both melee and projectiles. Their projectile distance is huge, so they can usually hit you from about halfway across the map. Not only this, but they have an enormous moveset, including a 4-directional blast that knocks you back and can hit you off the arena edge, the same bomb drops the mini-boss had that slow you, laser balls they drop that sit on the map and cut off your movement area unless you jump over them or destroy them. They spawn a ton of smaller viruses all around you. They have a shield that minimises their damage unless you destroy it, which they seem to be able to respawn every 5 seconds. And they have a located AoE attack around them that stuns you if it hits. At first I thought the 4 buff spawners were it for the entire level, i.e. you had to use them sparingly because once you use them they're gone. But actually it turns out that they regularly respawn. There are 4 points to pick them up from, but you can pick them up on repeat and double up your buffs. The enemy debuffs you every few seconds, it feels like, even when you don't appear to have been hit by anything, and the debuffs sometimes last absolutely ages. Yes, fair, your buffs can last up to a minute at a time if you double up on your pickups, but even a few seconds of being stuck in the same place is enough to completely ruin you. The attacks are telegraphed to try and give you a hope of avoiding, but if you're slowed and in reverse controls, you might not even be able to get out of the way before you get hit, and sometimes you're outside of the zone and end up debuffed by something anyway. I know the ground-based area of effect and the data bombs were linked to debuffs, but as for the rest of the time it was hard to tell if something debuffed me because I touched it, or because a small virus touched me, or because I was too close to an area of effect attack even if not directly hit by it. I have no idea. The game also tells you that you enter the arena when you're ready, but that's a big fat lie, because the area stays in the same state it was when you died, i.e. if there are a ton of area of effects in progress when you died, then they will still be active in the arena and you can see them happening from where your spawn point is. I tried to wait until they were done so I could re-enter in a safer moment to not get insta-debuffed, But the game has a timer, and if you don't opt to go back in 10 seconds, you get booted back in again against your will. Again, your respawn point is set, so if all the enemies were around that area when you died, congratulations, you are boned. As you can imagine, Stage 3 is absolute carnage. All 4 bosses have all of these abilities. They spawn even more ads, and to top it all off, that means you get stunned and debuffed in layers too, leading to them lasting even longer. And whenever they perform an area of effect attack, you've got 3 or 4 radiuses at once to get out of, because if any before the last hit and stun you, you're guaranteed to get hit by all the rest of them. These area of effects can set in on a delay too, meaning if you dodge the 4-way knockback from one, the next may set it up and then the next, and then you have even further to run to get away, and the first one is attacking you with something else. If you get stunned, the ads just wail on you, and the limited ammo issue is a complete curse in this level. You get ammo back when you pick up buffs, but you have to be able to get there first, and whilst you do get an unlimited ammo buff, sometimes you're not guaranteed because the chance is random, so you have to choose between killing the bosses and ignoring the ads who will and can still damage you, or focusing on the ads but not having ammo left to hit the boss, and the boss potentially just respawning all the viruses anyway once you're done. Your shield, I'm not sure, even protects you against any of these area of effect attacks, and because it only lasts 1.5 seconds, you might protect yourself from one melee attack or a handful of projectiles, but then it vanishes and you have the whole time to wait before you can use it again. The 4 bosses do have individual health bars though, so you usually just end up fighting 3 if you go straight for one at the start and kill them, then you just have to try and focus fire on singular ones to thin them down. The final part against the virus is the same as the first stage, except even worse, because he has abilities that others don't, such as laser beams that cut down from the ceiling and stun you on hit, giant green walls that will sit in the middle and rotate and then shove out to the edge. Yes, this will push you off the edge of the arena and kill you from a fall if you get hit by it. And between them they all generate a clear force field which also rotates. If the force field hits you, you get bounced off it, and if the boss is on the other side of the force field, you can't hit him at all. Also, he's invulnerable for the first 30 seconds of the fight, so he just gets to wail on you whilst you run away to collect buffs. I was pretty sure I managed to dodge a lot of the attacks with telegraphs and area of effects through all these levels, but goddamn if that meant I was immune from debuffs. Every few seconds it was like I was getting debuffed to the stars, and reverse is the absolute worst thing to get hit by in any of these levels, or even interrupt, because you are just stood there unable to move, attack, or escape, and there are a ton of enemies just waiting to stomp you into the ground. If I were to sum up the experience of playing this game, it would be like flossing every wrinkle in my brain, whilst simultaneously having a bat swung at my head every 10 seconds that I had to dodge. The sheer cranial strain required to succeed in these levels is out of this world, and whilst I did manage to beat the boss on my 4th attempt, and didn't really take more than 4 to beat level 11, it was also one of the most stressful things I've ever done, and required literally every respawn the game would offer me to allow me to succeed. There's an achievement you can get for beating the boss level without any respawns, but I'm in firm belief that that's impossible, because how can you still live when you're getting stunned by nothing every minute? Maybe I did get hit and it was a skill issue, but I only have one set of eyeballs and a limited capability for spatial reasoning, so I can't focus on dodging multiple attacks, shooting at large and small viruses, eyeing my health and ammo capacity and my ability cooldowns, and knowing how close to the edge of an arena or the buff sphere I'm heading for but can't actually face otherwise I wouldn't be able to attack I am. The absolute worst part about the whole experience is that I can't even really argue it's unfair, because the harder the game gets, the more it does to help you out, such as giving you more respawns, improving, in some cases, your abilities and altering them. It tells you exactly what you're in for before you do it, and the rest is for you to fill in. I do believe it would have been more helpful for the shield to be something that gained an improvement at some point. Even if it was to make it last longer with a longer cooldown, that would be far, far more helpful than having it for the split second that one attack might touch you, and then leaving you unprotected for the whole time while it regenerates whilst the other 99 attacks are screaming at you from all angles. The line between challenge and handicap is very delicately tiptoed in this game, since things like the ammo limitation can be worked around, but the second tier of the teleport being visibly no different from what I could see to the first stage is not really something you either need or can do anything about. It's just worse because you have to wait longer for the same thing. The bridges level almost had too many enemies since it stalled you every handful of seconds, and your limited ammo wasn't nearly enough to deal with the amount that could build up. But luckily the second part in 8 to 11 being right around the outside meant that you could just get them into a phase of following you down the long lines, and as long as you paid attention in front of you, you could thin out the mass behind you whilst you waited, and then keep running and let them trail after you. The jump on the bridges level was sketchy, and the stun didn't really last long enough. It worked for maybe 2 seconds at best, which does nothing for enemy proximity to you, and on occasion it didn't actually appear to work. I'm not sure if it was supposed to hit an area, but there were plenty of times I landed a hit on a group, and the rest of the group was still slinging projectiles at me without hesitation, not stunned at all. The shield was kind of helpful, but only at really specific times, and not really in combat, especially not consistent combat. I do think, despite that the game is pretty well balanced. It's hard, but it's meant to be hard, and it's not impossible or ridiculously unfair. With each change in game mode, you get a change in abilities to help you out, or try to, and the challenge does at least vary, especially in the bridge levels where there are 3 different things that can be altered to increase the difficulty. It's not much of a looker for assets, but they do appear to be original since they're all set to the game theme, and there are effects on the attacks to make them look more realistic, and the camera shake gives weight behind the hits. The mechanics all work without any glitches. It's very well explained and easy to understand. The game is very true to theme, even down to the settings menu, and with using file corruption as death, including the background with coding in it, and with all the attacks being data related, and the CPU arena being disc-shaped being a nice connection to the basis. What I do want to say is well done to the creator. For a single-man project, it's really good and promising stuff. I mean, I sure hate how difficult it is, but it's that level of difficult where I have to remind myself to chill out and just have another go because I'm close enough to succeed even though I failed. It's a brain workout, and for anyone like me who wasn't necessarily gifted with the longest fuse in the world, you're gonna have a bit of a ragey time. I had to take breaks from this due to getting mad at my own skill issues. But I tell you what, if you do want to test your attention capacity and reactions, this game's a fantastic way to do it. It's a shame there's no sound, but it's completely fair if you can put your hands up to not really wanting or being able to do the sound design, but not letting it hold you back from making games. I don't know if the creator has made any more games, since there aren't any more on Steam under their name, and with them being 17 in 2020 when it was released, maths would dictate that now in 2023 the creator is 20, so potentially still in education and maybe a little busy to release games. Who knows? This game actually only has 18 total reviews on Steam, so it appears not to have had a ton of attention. But it's a good game and I'd recommend giving it a try. There's chance for replay with trying to beat your own scores on the levels if you fancy it, or just trying to replay to actually beat the levels themselves in the first place. I'm going to give Inside the Computer an 8 out of 10.